morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Wednesday morning, where we are always brought to you by Reckless Coffee Roasters. I am back to being the greatest dad number one, and no John. He's trying to get in those rankings,
Yeah,
become like a
he's,
serious businessman.
he's
So
moving up.
unfortunately, he got called into work. But number two is here. What's going on, Gordo?
Not much. I got my Reckless mug, but I'm actually, because it's so hot out. I work outside. I call it hump lines, but I basically just walk power lines to look at tree work. And so I'm actually drinking a Celsius so I can get my
It
electrolytes
is
up.
brutal out there.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad the last couple of days, so I'm kind of cheating. I'm doing it for the brand, but it's
Reckless
nice
Coffee Roasters would be proud, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Miramenges, probably? Or Miramengas? Let's go with that. We're going to have to get something I'm blaming into. Nobody, who's going to correct me, right? Exactly.
Right, exactly.
So, good morning to Sir Z, Alan, as everybody gathers around. A lot to talk to. First of all, we're going to get to see Arne Slots literally right after the show. And I do appreciate he called me this morning. He was like, bro, I was going to do it 9 a.m. Central, but you guys are on, don't want to interfere. So I appreciate that. He's going to be on right after the show.
Yeah, because 4 o'clock is a weird, that's not like a, I don't know, 3 o'clock makes sense. 4 o'clock, like local time, doesn't. I don't know. That just seems like a weird time. So I think they did do it for us.
We're getting pretty big, dude. That's all I gotta say. We're getting pretty big. Well, Arne doesn't want to affect the ratings, so he's doing it as a separate time on the show.
You know what? This is probably a huge thinking, but they are doing an American tour, so maybe this did come into play, right? Because we are the biggest American following. Maybe they did take a look at our schedule and like, you know what, we really can't. You know, there's a lot of people that watch the 9 a.m.
Or actually, wait, I just thought of this. Or did they figure, hey, people are watching games, man. Nobody's going to watch a press conference, because then the Albania game that's going on right now, they're up against Croatia 1-0 in the Euros. That will be over, and there's an hour gap in between games. Maybe they were like, hey, you know what? Let's do it, because otherwise everybody's going to be watching whatever the 11. I mean, that's what I'm going to have on in the background as I work. But yeah, I mean, it's finally we're going to get to hear from him. I know yesterday we recorded I finally was able to get together with Kim, and we recorded like an interview with the Supporters Club at Netherlands.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Got some info from her in terms of, I mean, the most interested part, and it worked like a charm because she's a Rotterdam fan, so she was not like a Feyenoord fan. So I kind of wanted to get that perspective, because I think we're always biased for our own coaches, right? Even if they are annoying and stuff, they're our coach, so we don't find it annoying. So it was kind of like good to hear that perspective. I actually thought it would be out even before we heard from Arne, because it'll probably be released tomorrow. But still, I think there's going to be a lot of things that we're not going to get from the press conference. Let me ask you that. Like, what do you want to hear at the press conference that you're going to, because everybody has been crying about not having this press conference. So what can you hear as Gordo from the press conference and you're like, there we go, we're set?
He's talked to his players, because that's been the biggest one, right? I feel like that to me was always a big red flag. It's like, how has he not, been like, hey, here I am. Do you need anything? Let me know. Like,
Van Dijk is like, who this?
Yeah. New phone. Who this? Yeah. That would be, like, oh, I've got a private chat. And I asked everyone to kind of keep it hush or whatever, because we were just kind of working on some things just for him to reach out. And yeah, I get I know there was a lot of talk of saying like, oh, he doesn't want to disturb the players in Euros, but like, this is more of like a circus sideshow, right? I think the players are still more focused on playing for the club. So you get a new manager, you want to make a good impression, and you're hoping that he reaches out. So that's what I'm looking for, is that there's been some kind of communication with the team.
Yeah, like, I don't buy that part either. They're like, oh, I just don't want to distract them or anything like that. Because, by the way, I did want to share this anyway and toot my horn, because I was really hoping that we would get this guy to Liverpool last year. But so yesterday, when he scored that ridiculous goal, he did become the youngest to score in his debut on a Euro and stuff. But I know in the press conference, for example, he was talking about like Ancelotti messaging him before the game, after the game. Some of his like teammates messaging him after the game and stuff. But specifically, Angelotti like messaging him before
Nice.
the game and all that kind of stuff, like saying, wishing him good luck, blah blah blah. So I really don't think that's a good excuse. Maybe he just didn't. I just didn't know what to say. His own thoughts and self confidence himself is what I'm looking to hear. So I just feel like anybody at this level, and like I say, Kim was saying that his English and everything is pretty darn good. So you're not. She said he's not gonna sound like Ten Hag in the press conferences, which is a good thing to hear. I don't know, because I don't think I'm going to personally get anything that I'm going to walk away with saying, oh, okay, we got some information. I think it's just going to be a lot of anybody could be sitting there, Gordo, and saying the same things. I think it's going to be standard issue statements for the most parts.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the locker room. I always hate the locker, like right after the game locker room. It doesn't matter what sport it is. It's the same thing. I mean, you could literally cut in different teams, different eras. It's like, hey, played a really good game. Well, it's great that everything came together from practice. Or if it on the reverse side, it's like things just didn't go to plan, and we got to really stick to the game. It's the same thing, It's like you don't learn anything from like talking to a guy in his boxer briefs after a game. It's just.
That's what it's like. Personal achievements are not important. It's the success of the team. Just
exactly.
Let me press that button. Yeah, I know what you mean. Because I really would like to hear some tactical stuff, and I don't think we're going to get any of that. No. I mean, we might get, even when, they might ask him about his philosophy and stuff like that. But
it'll be like, have you tried Scouse yet? And he's like, oh yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah, that's all it's gonna be. Like, how are you settling in? Oh, everything's great. It's a little hectic, but the people have been lovely. Like, that's all we're gonna hear.
That's what I think. Maybe that's why I was like, I know we wanted to hear. First of all, like he'll definitely give us something to talk about, right? Because it was kind of like slim pickings till the Euros started. But I just feel like we're not going to get anything unique, anything that's going to get us saying, "Ah, wow, did you guys hear what he said?" I don't think there's going to be one thing that we're going to say like, "Did you hear what he said?" No way, or something like that, because it's going to be pretty standard issue stuff. I know what Gally is saying in terms of self-confidence and stuff, but I think that's kind of expected, right? I just don't expect to see like a 12-year-old sitting there like old Simon. He's like, I don't know, stop asking me questions, kind of thing, and won't storm off.
Right, because he's probably at the height of his game right now, right? He was left a club that's pretty much in good working order. We've had success over the last 5 years, so he's not stepping into a situation where we're like desperate for trophies, and like we've been aching. Like when we're making the comparison, so I'll just continue to do it. But like Ten Hag stepping into United is way different than Slot stepping into Liverpool in terms of expectations of the fan base.
Yeah.
Like he's already got everybody on his side. We're in a really good form. We've got a great team. We've got the base of a great team. And so like he was picked to succeed Klopp. So his confidence should be up there. So I think if we see the opposite, that's a little worrying. But right now I think he should be in good spirits.
Yeah, I said Ten Hag, Van Gaal, Mourinho at times was defensive during their first press conference. I don't know. Like, depends. I mean, Mourinho is Mourinho, right? Mourinho was a little snippy at his Fenerbahce press conference too, because he literally said, and he's right. He's like, I've never been in this long of a press conference because it goes hours and hours back home. So I don't know. I think it's kind of like how we listen to it too, right? Like if you listen to it, I mean, you could argue Klopp was very defensive at times, but you kind of like, they put themselves at a certain level that they don't want questions. And I kind of understand that it comes with the ego and stuff. And it kind of, I think to me, is part of the confidence when somebody's getting defensive about, how you approach or how you evaluate them, especially in their initial press conference. It's like, you're already nitpicking them. Gala says he thinks Slot has higher expectations, which I think he does because he's probably coming into a better situation, Gordo. But I don't know if he is doubted as much or like questioned as much. Succeeding Klopp is tricky. I get that. But, with like Ten Hag and stuff like that, it was almost like, what are you going to do with this mess? whereas I don't think we get that as much with Slot.
Yeah, he has less to figure out, right? Like he has less to manage or less to clean up. So I guess in that respect, I kind of agree with Gally in the sense that if it doesn't work, oh, excuse me, if it doesn't work, then it's definitely on his tactics, right? Because he's got a great board to back him. He had the base of a good team that's already won trophies. And he's got high expectations and kind of already approval from, yeah, I would say moderate approval from the fan base. So if it fails, it really is on his shoulders. So there might be, a little more pressure, but I don't think he's feeling it yet. We'll just say that.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that because it's Liverpool too? Because normally you could say, I mean, every new manager has, some certain length of a leash, if you will. Um, Succeeding club coming taking over a team that is on the rise, normally might even make that leash shorter because the expectations, like Yali's saying, is higher. But in a club like Liverpool, where we don't just 3 months later say, your shit isn't working and stuff like that, I think he should feel a lot more confident stepping in. And so he makes a good point that it's an in-house interview. So it's just going to be a bunch of beach balls thrown at him that he's just going to be like, poor, poor, just like slamming him down, kind of like what you're saying, like, how do you like the city? Or,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but at least, hey, we get to hear from them. And see what he says about his like coaching staff and stuff like that. But like I say, I don't think we're gonna walk away with anything too unique.
However, he does drop some bombs before Liverpool's ready, so maybe he might let one slip. Just that's his mo is just to do stuff before the club announces.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that's edited. So
Yeah, that is true.
like, you can't say that shit. Like, okay, let's talk about this. So finally, at least we have this. The schedule is out. These are the first 6 weeks. How do you like them apples? Is that like a good start? It was almost like a given that we would play one of the teams that just went up. It is away. I mean, really, I know, Old Trafford away, especially the beginning of the season, while United will still have their hopes high, is definitely a tricky fixture. And of all things, my brother is going to be here, so I'm going to be watching that with him. So that's going to be torturous. But what do you make of the first 6 games?
I know everyone likes that first matchup, but how many times have we played a team that just comes up and it goes to like 4-3 and it's like a nail biter and like everyone's like, this is a great, like I remember Norwich didn't like Pookie score twice against us opening day of like 2018 or something like that. I think it was 2018. And then obviously we had the Leeds game a couple years ago that went to like double-digit goals. So that one makes me a little nervous. So, I'm a little nervous for it. I'm not as confident as most people are. Obviously, Ipswich is a little different because they've jumped so many divisions in such a quick time, but it still has all the hallmarks. It's also a 12:30, which is like, I don't know, maybe one last fuck you to Klopp from so like it has all the hallmarks of just a giant goose egg or something like that. So I'm not looking forward to that. But I think, potentially we could walk away with a big point haul here. I think, we got the 3 home games. I think we'd take all 3 points from, especially because it looks like Ivan Toney's leaving Brentford. It looks like Tottenham are probably going to sign him. I know that they had a bid in for him, so we'll see that. The Man United game, I'd be fine with a tie. I think we probably could win that one. Forest are hit and miss, so you'd have to see how they start the season. And then Wolves, I mean, Wolves might be the punching bag of the PGMOL this year, so that might be an easy win for us. We'll see.
Yeah, it's kind of like hard to tell too, because like you said, we really don't know all the moves and what's going to happen, who's going to get what and stuff like that. So it is a little hard to judge on paper. As of now, you look at this, and I mean, to answer the question that we're asking our social media, I am going with 16 points because I think I'm okay with a point. I mean, obviously, you always want to beat United, but I'm okay with especially an early season Old Trafford away, a draw with that one. And 16 points is pretty darn good out of this. Do you think we'll be able to muster that 16 or more or less, or where are we at?
I'd take 14 no losses. You know, you go into week 7 with no losses and 14 points. I'd go with that.
Yeah, Galley says 15-16. I think 15 I'm not so cool with because I do not want a loss. I guess we're on the same page there with you. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm almost like maybe more okay with the 14 4
Right.
wins and that 2 draws than that for something like Brian says he can see 16 points. I mean, it definitely looks doable. We just don't know who's going to be what, right? I mean, that's like the biggest problem right now. But you look at 3 home games that you should win. You almost have to win. You can't afford to lose points at home, especially against these teams. So, I mean, no disrespect to Brentford and Forest and Bournemouth and stuff, but so you got to get those 12, and then I mean, ideally you should be able to get the Wolves game. Yeah, but they say you could possibly be right about the Wolves, but you never know. You know, they signed 2 guys that we haven't maybe heard of that well. I know they just snatched somebody away from Chelsea, and then
I just see the fact that like 19 teams vote yes, and they're the only ones. They put a big target on their back. I feel like so.
Yeah, right. Every VAR call with them is going to get really, really blown up now.
Yeah.
So that is going to be interesting. But I know, I mean, overall, when you look at this schedule, did anything pop out at you and you were like, oh, this is not good, this is not great, or this is great, or whatever?
So United's a big one, just because of history, right? And it bit us in the ass this year. But I think it's the easiest start we've had to a season in quite some time in terms of like the matchups. We're not playing anybody that I would consider title contenders really early, so we can get a really good momentum on. I like the start. I think we don't play City until November, so things could really start heating up by then. I mean, we could be in a situation where we're top of the league battling already, and that we come to that City game in November, and that one means a lot. So I think it's a good start to the season.
I mean, we haven't done anything in the off season, and it's probably going to be a while with all these tournaments going on. So it is kind of hard to say. But as we sit here today, do you start the season saying title or bust kind of a thing, or because it's Slot's first season, are you more like, let's see what happens?
I mean, we're still all the allegations are starting to pile up. It looks like there's chinks in the armor and stuff is going on behind the scenes with Pep, but it is still Pep's Man City. So to say that this is title or bust would be really, really hard on Slot, considering that Klopp only did it one time in his tenure. So to say that it's title or bust, that would be I feel like that'd be way too harsh on Slot. I'd be fine with just top 4. Honestly, it'd be nice to get a trophy, but I think just securing top 4, going into the knockout stages of the Champions League, I think those are the big circles that he's got to put an X through at the end of the season.
Top 4 in the trophy, says Brian as well. I think so. It's almost like we're taking a top 4 as a minimum requirement at this point, right? With the squad he's taken over and stuff. Then again, we don't know the squad he's taken over, so we're going to find that out in the next coming months over here. But as things stand, I think that will be the case. Football Flash says my bet that Croatia will win the Euros is not looking good. No, it is not, my friend. It is not. And he says, "Yep, congrats to yes, that was huge yesterday. That was a fun game to watch. Honestly, I don't know if you got to watch it or anybody in the audience watched it, but I think it felt like, to a neutral, that was a great game to watch. It was not if you were really involved in it, because it wasn't like, it was constant action. It felt like it was very fast paced and it was pretty open because both teams were like pressing high at times and stuff like that. But that's like a huge win with like 2 ridiculous goals and stuff like that. But let's take a look at that so the first games are in the books. Football Flashback says that was definitely the best game of it because I really enjoyed the Netherlands game. Netherlands, Poland, I thought that, yes, that was a good game as well.
He's reading your mind. Are you Football Flashback?
I'm typing here at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, as we're saying it, he typed it. I was just like, I've never been in the same room.
But the first row of games is in the books, right? Because Germany is coming up again today. What do you make of it so far? I mean, anything that kind of shocked you? Obviously, yeah, the second phase has started. You can kind of see there with Albania now, basically, pretty much putting Croatia out, not only because they have 0 points if it goes like this, but the fact that their goal differential got screwed against Spain in the first game.
Yeah, Albania has been. I mean, that group there has been a little surprising for me in all senses, because Albania obviously scoring very early against Italy, who are the defending champions. That doesn't. I know you say that sometimes and it means a lot, but like it's a totally different team. It's 4 years ago, but still, Italy is the defending champion. So for them to score the fastest goal of the tournament, 23 seconds in? I mean, that's good. The fact that Italy scores twice really quickly. But then they're held. Albania holds them for the rest of the game. So even though Albania loses that one, I thought it was a good showing. They take a lot from that. And obviously they have, because they scored another early goal against Croatia. Spain was surprising. I mean, this is, international royalty here with Spain. But I didn't see them as a complete of a team. I mean, I think the last couple of years they've been kind of young, and they're good because of their history, but they've kind of gone off the boil a little bit. But they looked really good against Croatia, but that might just be because Croatia's terrible. But yeah, this has been the most surprising group for me at Group B.
Yeah, Croatia just looks old, and looks like they need like a reset. It's kind of like the end of a era is what it's looking more and more like. Just watching that Spain game, it just looked like an old team. It looked like one of those like indoor league where the over 35 team is taking over a team that some college kids put a team together, and that's what it felt like when you were watching that. There's constantly chasing the ball and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a huge win for Albania, because that was the odd thing, like we were talking about yesterday. I don't know if you saw the Turkey game. I don't know if you saw the last goal. You're a hockey guy. That was like a hockey goal. Empty nets one at the end. Yep. And I thought that was like, it didn't, aside from finally being able to sit down and catch my breath, I felt like it's such a risky proposition, because that goal can really come down and be the decider between you going to the next round or not going to the next round, just purely on goal differential, when 4 out of the 6 out of the third spots are like moving on to the next round.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like risky.
It definitely was risky. Yeah, and it wasn't. And I know for you, it wasn't a comfortable game for you. It was great for the neutrals, because a couple posts were hit. It could have gone either way. I mean, the end scoreline, that was a very hockey scoreline, because it looks like one team kind of ran away with it. But if you actually watched it, it was a lot closer than the scoreline. But it was because of the empty netter. I didn't even think about that. But you're right. It was a very hockey game.
But yeah, I mean, that could be huge. I mean, Germany looks like they will be in control of that group. I mean, I guess we'll find out later on. Huge game for Hungary coming up. I mean, that's going to be who goes from that group? Who do you pick right now after watching the first games?
Like who doesn't advance or who does advance?
I guess who does not advance, because at this point it's almost easier to pick who does not advance, because really we're only eliminating 8 teams, right, in total.
Right. Yeah, I think like if Scotland continue to play like that, they're definitely out. I mean, that was that. Yes, I saw you and Matush talking about it on Monday, and it was. I think the story was more how shit Scotland was than how good Germany was. Yes, they scored 5, and anytime you score 5, you put on a good game. But they also had, that the penalty, red card double whammy right at halftime, which is a crucial time. At that point, it's only 2-0. So, I don't know. They were so bad. I had to listen. My dad came over real early for that game. Usually they come over later at night on Friday, and he came over nice and early to watch that game, because I was explaining last night on the podcast that, like, my dad's born in England, but his dad was born in Scotland. So, like, Scotland for him is like England for me, where I watch England scores more closely than I watch the U.S.'s scores, and he watches Scotland way closer than he watches England. And so we were outside enjoying the day. We put the pool up with the kid. My mom's out there. My wife's out there. We're having a good time. And he went inside to watch the game. And I had the speakers out so I could hear it. And then at halftime, he was outside.
I thought you were going to be like, he never came outside. He's still in that room.
He shut it off, and I was like, Dad, I got the speakers on. You don't turn it off because I want to hear it. He's like, I don't want to hear this anymore.
Poor Graham.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sucked. Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was a painful one to watch. I have a feeling, honestly, before I watched the Portugal game yesterday, that kind of gave everybody a little bit of hope watching them yesterday. But it's gave before then. I thought the Portugal Turkey game is going to be like that. Turkey is not going to play the same way. I almost can even see like Arda not starting against Portugal and stuff like that, and just putting a more defensive lineup out there who can counterattack. But yeah, I was afraid of a game like that, and those are really, really painful to watch. Hungary has to keep it close with Germany, says Gally, and I agree. I think the biggest thing is, I mean, you gotta be able to not get demolished when. And I think as any manager, you look at the format of the tournament, that should be your first thought. I know you don't want to go to your team and be like, guys, we just got to make sure we don't get demolished in any game. But in the back of your head, you have to have that and make sure you do not totally fall off. Even if you're down 2 or something like that, do not open yourself up and just do damage control, because, like, say 4 out of the 6 is freaking going up. So, Allen is 60. He wasn't he 40 when we were getting it. I don't know how that's a bargain. I don't know. All Euro is. I'm sorry. He's talking to. I don't know that guy. That kid is 18, right? From Lille in France. Yeah, that's steep.
60 million for
an 18-year-old is steep. And I know Madrid is in the talks for that, and that sounds like a Madrid's kind of money. That's kind of like a risky proposition to give that much to a young player. I don't know. Like, what do you want to see? I mean, do you want something that large invested, or would you rather have that invested in a 24-year-old? Maybe the ceiling, you already know the ceiling, but you also know what you're getting. There's a body of work.
I think the other thing we never talk about, and I don't know how much it factors into it, but I'm sure there's a lot of like, these are very competitive humans. They would not be where they are without being extremely competitive. Therefore, sometimes you also have to manage expectations within the team already when somebody comes in with that. Sometimes I feel like when signings don't work, when they're in the 100 millions, it's because this guy comes in and the whole team's like, yeah, this guy's not worth 100 million. And so he kind of gets, you know, exactly. Like, so it's like the whole team dynamic shifts, and if you bring in for lack of a better term, a child in for $60 million, and he's making more, because that's the other thing, is like one of Klopp's big things was continuity in terms of your weekly wages, and it kind of kept the team in cohesion, because everyone, nobody was breaking up, and there wasn't this huge disparity between what the bottom guy was making and what the top guy was making. Now that he's gone, I think we'll see that, which is very common in most of the other teams. You bring a kid in with a huge weekly paycheck, and you've got guys like Robertson and like some of the guys that probably have been here for a long time making that minimum, what they should be making at the bottom end, and they're rolling their eyes, and so that screws the cohesion of the team. So I think you got to really be careful of that too.
I think it's just like, I mean, Gaddis seems a lot for a young center back of all positions, and I think that's the key thing for me, that he's a center back. I don't know why, but I would feel a lot more comfortable, or maybe not comfortable still, because that's still a lot for an 18-year-old. But if it was like midfield or something like that, because you have a chance to kind of like develop him into another role or something like that, salvage something. I feel like with center backs, it's a hit or miss. You can't just be like, oh, like he'll come in the 60th minute of games, or what I mean? You can't manage anything, or you can't mold them into a specific role. They're either starting caliber, and they better be for 60 million, or they're not. And what if he's another Sepp Vandenberg? Yeah. And you just spent 60 million on him instead? It's one thing to get a guy like Sepp, and you're like, it didn't work out, and then you actually sell him and make money on it. I guess I would rather roll the dice on a 17-year-old and then get him in there and at least not invest anything in it, and then have him in the rotation. If it doesn't pan out, you still have 60 million in your pocket? This is a good question, and I guess brings us back to the Euros a little bit as well. The Group D, where Matush is like just watching like from between his fingers over here to see what's gonna happen. Netherlands, Gakpo was actually, I just saw like the best starting 11 out of the first round of games and stuff like that, and actually Gakpo was on there. But the funny thing is, Samet from Turkey was on there too, and he's only there because of all these injuries, and people were like horrified that he's starting. But that's not the story. So Gakpo at left wing is there because Football Flashback says, can we run a poll on should we start Gakpo or Lucho at left wing? And to me, Gordo, that's the problem. That's the kind of stuff that I would like to hear in this interview in terms of tactics and like formations and stuff like that, which will definitely not happen. Does that really depend more on how we're going to play than anything else?
Yeah, because it's two completely different styles of attacking. I mean, it is, as much as you don't like to be regional and kind of put those put those stereotypes on them, but like it is very much a Dutch style of play and a South American style of play. Yeah. Where like you've got one like hold up, very composed, always looking for a pass inside, and then you've got someone that runs 1,000 miles an hour looking to beat everyone on the face of the planet and get it to the touchline and turn it inside. So you've got two totally different styles of play. So it is going to come down to how he wants to play those wingers. And there's a possibility. I know that like he's probably going to stick with the same way that he played at Feyenoord, but he could totally change it up with what he's got. You could look at the team and go, all right, we're not going to play the same way as Klopp did. And therefore, you could maybe fit both Gakpo and Diaz in the same team.
And that's the thing. I'm not sure. I mean, Brian says Diaz will not be here. I guess
I think he's most likely to go.
Yeah, I agree with that to the point where if you see this where they're like you're watching Gakpo, and I'm sure it's not like, I mean, I think sometimes people think, oh yeah, once you see this kind of a thing, we were talking about like players markets and stuff before the tournament started. It's not like because I know we're talking with my brother as well, like for some of the Fenerbahce players like Szymanski and stuff like that in Poland had like a miserable first half and got yanked and stuff. I don't think any scout or anybody is going to these tournaments and looking and kind of like buying off of what they do in the tournaments. Exception might be for a guy like Szymanski, who's doing great in Turkey, but what does he do good against? Like, how does he fare against another opposition? But, national teams where they play, what they do is everything different. So I don't think any decisions are being made based on this. You would think Slot probably knows Gakpo really well from the Dutch league and everything like that. If anything, this might reinforce that, yeah, why they have Gakpo, I don't even know why they were, why they were starting Lucho at left wing anyway, kind of thing. And does that make him expandable, or it's too early for him to even think about, removing pieces instead of like finding ways to put those pieces together and make them work together?
I think that's much harder. It's I mean, we've seen it so many times. If the pieces don't fit, they're not going to fit. And we've seen plenty of teams. I always go back to like the early 2010s of Tottenham when they went nuts and spent a ton of money and brought in 9 players. And it didn't matter what the rotation was and where they put those players, it was never going to work. And sometimes you can't find it. But that if he does find it, then that's a masterstroke on his part, and we got the right guy for the job because we've got all the pieces. I'd much rather see him take this team for the first year and make it work than to start dismantling and trying to slot in these 16-year-old center backs just because we want to spend some money in the transfer window.
But then at the same time, can't you just, I mean, I know it doesn't work like that in terms of assets. By the way, Croatia must have heard me calling them. So they're up 2-1 now. So poor Albania looks like, because that was going to be an upset. I think. I don't think everybody, if anything, everybody, I think, considered Croatia to challenge the big two of Spain and Italy. Yeah. In that group. Surprise, it's just going to come down to Italy versus Croatia at the end, I guess, in terms of what happens in that group. But, is it okay? Going back to the Lucho thing, I know it's difficult, but can you look at that situation and say, hey, I mean, I have like two left wings. Who needs two left wings where I can convert? And Gally was mentioning in the comments with Copa America, with Colombia being a dark horse and him really being the main guy in Colombia and a lot going like through him and everything like that, you could possibly say he's the easier one to move with a lot more value, and you can convert that to another position of needs.
You could say the same for I think the link of like the Dutch link is what keeps him here, is what makes Diaz like more favorable move. The other thing is too, like the Diaz's style of play kind of lends itself to more teams. I feel like kind of at your throat. But watching the Dutch game in that first one, Gakpo was one of the main guys. And honestly, like everyone's looking at Memphis Depay, he had a really bad game.
Yeah.
And I was saying last night that like he was playing more of like waiting for Memphis to make the pass. But had he been selfish and started crashing the post, I think he would have had a hat trick because Memphis was taking the shot on and missing wide. He missed 3 or 4 of them. And if Gakpo had crashed the back post, he could have had an easy tap in. And I think if they play the same way, someone's already gotten his ear about that. And I think Gakpo, judging by that first game, is going to play a bigger role than I thought he would for that Dutch team.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you think you would definitely get a lot? I mean, I guess here's the thing, right? You mentioned that, Lucho's style probably appeals to more teams who want like a winger who's going to go at people. But at the same time, you do get a lot more versatility from Gakpo in terms of like the positions he can play, even though obviously he's not as productive in some of those other positions that we try to fit him in. But maybe, and I felt like this throughout the season, and I know everybody was like, "Oh, Nunez comes in, creates chaos and stuff like that." I really felt like that's how we should have kept it, and maybe we would have molded Gakpo over time to be a faster, bigger Bobby, if you will, and like like more after finishing than Bobby was. He's never going to be Bobby. He was a unicorn,
right.
But close to a Bobby who's actually physically more gifted than Bobby.
Definitely. And I think there's just, and it might just be age, because I was earlier, right before the podcast, I was called 50 years old, and that really hurt. But
you know what? Screw you, because I am 50. So how dare you? How dare you?
That hurt. But it might just be being older, but like everything about Gakpo screams like traditional number 9, right? He's just a big, talented guy that can operate with his back to goal. And like, there's something about him that I just want to squeeze him into that role. And he might not fit into it, but everything to me says that we can make, out of everyone we had on the team, he's the best one to fill Bobby's shoes in that sense. He's not, like you said, he's not going to be Bobby, but he's the one that I would pick or be most comfortable with kind of pushing him into that.
Yeah, I mean, I really felt like we could have developed him over time, and it's almost like we gave up too early. We fell in love with some of the Nunez things way too early and tried. I think it was a matter of like, do we make this work or do we focus on making that work? And we kind of chose the latter, which I thought was the wrong way to go. But keeping Diaz for that is all well and good, but a sale could get you. I don't think if you're keeping Diaz, I don't think he's your back off left winger, right? I think you're keeping him because you're utilizing it in a different way, or you're doing something with it. So you're trying to find a way to get both of them out at the same time or something, which is tricky. You can only have so many people out there. Obviously, this all comes back and hinges on what happens with Mo and everything like that, because you could maybe shift one of them to the right wing and use them that way, but we're not going to know much. Iskandar is saying that, like slot is on in 20 minutes, waiting for us to get off air so he can come on. And unfortunately, he's not going to address any of these. It's going to be more, but it's like he's not going to talk about any of the stuff over here. Okay, let's finish off the groups over here real quick. England's, you were talking about it earlier. How satisfied with that? Does it even matter? I mean, we were yesterday after Turkey won that game. There was so much criticism about like, you should have done this, you should have done that. I felt like for the first time in a long time, Turkey had a manager who made tweaks in the system and not the players going into the second half, like shifting Arda to the middle and taking Barish outside wide. It's a minor tweak, but it made a world of a difference, because if it's not for that, Arda is not in the one in the middle taking that shots. He's out in the wing. And but got a lot of criticism. But at the end of the day, in the great words of my daughter Layla, no one cares as long as you get the freaking 3 points. I mean, look at Belgium. Belgium would love to have a shitty game, but have 3 points instead of where they're at right now. So England, even though it did not look as convincing, especially with the early goal, it looked like they were going to run away with it. And then honestly, they kind of hang on for dear life at the end. But isn't it all about getting the 3 points at the end?
Yes and no, because of history.
Hey, everybody, this is going to be pretty much the slut interview over here. Yes, no.
Because of history, right? Like, they have one thing that I don't think any other like potential winner has in the group stages, is almost guaranteed 9 points. So they really don't have any pressure, which is maybe why we didn't see them push a whole lot. You know, Gareth Southgate he has the ability to kind of play his team out. But I saw a meme and it summed it up perfectly. It's just that Gareth Southgate is the person that would put his phone on battery saver mode at 99%. And that's what we saw against Serbia. I mean, it's perfect. They go up 1-0 really early, and then he decides to play defensively. And, like, that's all well and good. You do get the 3 points, but you do that against any of the potential winners of this tournament, and you are going to get blown away. And so I hope that was just a game one. Let's feel this out. Let's get legs underneath us. Let's find out what my best rotation is. And then we'll see a little bit more pushing. But they really should have dismantled that Serbia team. And that was the most disappointing 3 points, I think, of the tournament so far.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but France, Austria maybe comes close. But it was weird. I mean, you might have a point, because it just felt like they were hanging on for dear life, too. It wasn't like one of those where, you know, we used to do that, right? Like, you know, Klopp, in terms of like closing out games. Mm-hmm. And, you know, while it wasn't fun to watch for people like me who watch it on edge, you know, we would just cruise through it, like not give up stuff and all that. So it wasn't like that. Serbia had a lot of chances, and that goal could have come, and it just did not unfortunately for Serbia, I guess, in some ways. But let's finish it off. This Group E is very interesting because anybody can do anything, it feels like, especially after seeing Belgium. Do you think Belgium still makes a comeback and wins that, or at least you think they find a way to get past? Because at the end of the first games, really, it looks like they lost against the easiest team in some way.
Yeah, but wasn't the easiest team, because Kelly made a point last night that said when you were in the worst group, like when you're in the group with the, like, in terms of standings in world football, it's almost the hardest group. It's not going to be labeled the group of death, but the fact that everybody has a chance, you know, teams approach games differently. And obviously Romania, I think Belgium had like 75% possession, but like every time Romania got a shot, they basically scored, which is like what you should do as an underdog team. So they played it perfectly. The one thing I'll say is, who won the World Cup, and what did they do in their first game of the World Cup tournament? Now, mind you, I'm almost positive that it was a giant commercial for the Saudi League.
Oh, that's right.
Argentina did lose to Saudi Arabia. I'm not going to get into that conspiracy now, but I'm pretty sure. That was a paid advertisement for the Saudi League.
So that, or it's happened the other way around. When they beat Argentina, they're like, we got to make these guys the winner so we can make Saudi Arabia the World Cup winner beaters. Yeah, exactly. That could be that. I'll start my own conspiracy theory. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good point, where it gives a team a mindset that any game is winnable, and it's not. I mean, you look at some of these groups, right? Like, let's say Netherlands, France, Poland, Austria. So if you are Austria or Poland, you might look at that and say, hey, you know, Poland, Austria, like, might see each other and say, that's the game we got to get the 3 points from. And then whatever we get from the other ones is a bonus. Whereas, like you're saying, if you're in the Group E, you're like, hey, any game we can get 3 points from, so we got to go out there. I can kind of see that. I mean, I know what, personally, for example, in Group F, where Turkey is, I was more like, this Georgia game was a must win. And it feels odd to say as the first game. but it was a must win because it's the most winnable game. So you got to win that one. And actually, Georgia, maybe partially because it was, I mean, they have some good players and it was their very first one. So they were, I kind of talked about it. It was actually on one of our shorts that they're going to be really gung ho about this game and really going to be very, very committed to it. I mean, Turkey is pretty much the home team in this tournament, as we saw in that game. I mean, that place was louder than it was in the Germany game. So, I mean, the Turkish crowd is going to be there. It's going to feel like a home game every time they go out there. But yeah, like against Portugal, next game, anything you get is an additional bonus. Mm-hmm. So as long as you don't get smashed, you put yourself in the driver's seat now for being second or third in that group and advancing, and that's all that matters. But yeah, that is a good point, which, by the way, we should mention that Drinking Inside the Box did get recorded, so we will have that out later this week, probably along with our interview with the Supporters Club from Netherlands. That should be going out tomorrow as well. So if you are not on our Patreon, you should all head on over there and make sure you do subscribe. I'll throw this background over there so you can scan the Q code and really go to town. Well, you can't scan that one. Well, you can scan this one. You can scan that one and make sure you sign up. Even if you sign up for free, right now you will have access to that content this summer, and then once we head into the fall, obviously it's going to go back to only the paid members, but you get a taste of some of the content that's going to be on there, like Drinking Inside the Box and stuff like that. So more general Premier League kind of, but I think this one was more probably about the Euros, I assume. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, any parting thoughts? We wrap up because I see Slot in the background getting ready, so we got to leave the studio for him. The interview is on YouTube. I'll say hi for you. Yes. Any parting thoughts? What do you want? Give me one thing that you definitely want to hear from him today, and I'll let him know.
That's I haven't changed my thoughts. I think just making sure that he's reached out to everybody on the team and.
Okay, so if he says, I just entered the WhatsApp chat, like Slot has answered.
Let's I'll do it right now. Hey, what's going on?
What up, boys?
Yeah. I think it will be good. Like overall, I know Gally kind of said the same thing, but like kind of judging his character, like really figuring out who the guy is. Is he going to be a jokester? Is he going to take it super seriously? And obviously, he can be a jokester. And if we get 18 points in the first 6 games, then let him say whatever the hell he wants. I don't care.
I think the interesting is, I guess I do want to see him and got kind of like a good understanding of what to expect. And I think it does sound like we're going to get a guy pretty darn similar, very kind of like doesn't think too highly of himself. Like he's not going to go around saying he's the special one. But then he's going to talk about a lot about like teamwork, working together and stuff like that. Like kind of like going to value that. And in terms of personality, like confidence, occasionally going to crack a joke and stuff like that, but not too afraid to make fun of himself and say stupid stuff. But I want to see that, I guess. I just want to see like what this dude is going to be like personality wise. And I know, like, somebody was saying in the comments earlier, it's kind of like a club interview. So it's going to be more, I'm going to ask you this, you're going to say this. Then I say this, you say that. So it's going to be more like that.
How does the dry fit? You like the dry fit Nikes?
Well, your favorite meal.
They're available in the club store right now. No, there is nothing better. Like Jurgen Klopp was so good at. There's nothing better than a person saying, this is just a game. We're not heroes. There's people doing actual work, and this is just fun. And then going out and like not losing a home game for 2 years. There's nothing better than that. Where it's like humble, but also like I mean business. And this isn't a game to me, but I'm going to say that to everybody.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like. I think I like that in a manager where I want you to be humble and not go around like cocky. But at the same time, I want you to show you that you are serious and stuff like that. There you go. That's a great question that I'm sure we'll get an answer to. The favorite color is the only thing you're going to get out of this, I think, Trevor.
Yeah.
I know about that. I don't know if you can squeeze in a double pivot question. Like, if Gravenberg was there and kind of, it's going to be, but it'll be interesting. At least we'll get to hear from him. So we can't complain that anymore. But we'll kind of like make way a little bit earlier so you guys can settle into watch slots and what he says. And then the boys will be back tomorrow night, Trevor himself included, along with Brian and Mecca, and they will probably be talking a lot more about like the specifics. And then we'll be back Friday morning, and I'm sure we'll continue that conversation along with taking a look at the Euro as we go. And then Copa America is starting Thursday as well. So many tournaments, so little time in this goddamn heat of Midwest. But have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you guys Friday. Take care.